Your story, our station.
If you've ever felt trapped in that endless top 40 loop, you know the feeling. Same songs, same sounds, same safe choices. Like the world hit repeat and lost the button to try something new. Today, I want to introduce you to a crew that's built to do the exact opposite. Change the station entirely. Bullet End Flight is based right in the heart of the 505, Albuquerque, where the green chili runs hot and the creative energy somehow runs even hotter. And when I say Bullet End Flight, I'm not talking about one single project or one single vibe. Think of it more like a parent company to a whole family of artistic misfits. People who don't fit neatly into the usual boxes, and honestly, don't want to. At the center of everything is a mission that's pretty simple to say, but not always easy to pull off. Elevate the voices that usually get talked over. The artists who get labeled too niche, or too different, or that weird one, too Albuquerque. Whatever that's supposed to mean. If you've ever heard something like that about your work, this is your invitation to pull up a chair. Because that's not a deal breaker here. That's the whole point. Bullet End Flight is built around inclusivity, creative community building, and giving underrepresented artists the megaphone they deserve. Not as a trend, not as a marketing angle, but as the core identity. It's a response to a creative world that can feel gated, filtered, and overly polished, where the most interesting voices get told to tone it down so they can be easier to sell. And here's where it gets fun. Bullet End Flight doesn't believe in staying in one lane. Because why would you? Why drive a sedan when you could take a spaceship? The whole approach is more like, what does human expression look like across every format? And then going after all of it. Let's start with music, because that's a major part of the DNA. The mindset here isn't pick a genre and stay in it. It's more like, what's the vibe and does it hit? That can mean the spiritual charge of gospel, the late-night pulse of house music, the smooth storytelling and emotion of R&B, or even that classic country charm where life falls apart but somehow the drink is still cold. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about making something that feels alive. But it doesn't stop at music. There's a strong dedication to the spoken word too. Podcasts that get into the real stuff, not just surface-level chatter, and poetry that doesn't play nice. The kind that lands heavy, the kind that says what people avoid saying, the kind that reminds you words can still be dangerous in the best way. Then there's film and TV writing. Getting into scripts that actually have a heartbeat. Not another recycled reboot of a reboot. Not something designed by committee to offend the fewest people possible. The focus is on stories with soul. Stories with perspective. Stories that sound like they came from real lives, in real places, with real edges. And of course, the stage. Because there is nothing like live performance. It's unpredictable, it's electric, and yeah, anything can happen. And usually does. The stage is where art stops being an idea and becomes a moment, right in front of people who can feel it in real time. So why would an artist want to plug into something like this? Because being a starving artist has been romanticized for way too long, and it doesn't need to be the default. And being a lonely artist, trying to build everything by yourself, with no village, no network, no support, That's even worse. Bullet and Flight is about building that village on purpose. The goal is to take the talent that's been brewing in the Southwest, often overlooked, often underestimated, and project it outward. Not in a please notice us kind of way, but in a we're already here, and we're bringing the whole sound with us kind of way. Bullet and Flight positions itself as a launch pad, a safety net, and the hype you didn't realize you were missing. And let's be honest, a lot of people are tired of gatekeepers. Tired of needing permission. Tired of feeling like they have to sand down everything interesting about their work to be taken seriously. If that's you, this is a space that's built for finding your tribe. People who want loud, weird, real art, and who aren't afraid to make it together. If you want to get in the mix, Deombase is https://just-dominic. And if you want the visuals, you can find the YouTube channel at Just Dominic Music. Bullet and Flight Music, LLC is the company behind it all. And the invitation is open. Check out what's being built, listen to what's coming out, and if you're ready to change the station, this is a good place to start.
Inside Out on Bullet and Flight Radio. Real discussions with mental wellness professionals.
Welcome back to Bullet and Flight Radio, your story, our station. Today I want to walk you through a clinical theme that's as heartbreaking as it is hopeful, the difference between relational scapegoating and what I'll call core innocence. And I'm going to do it using a case profile where a client's life contains two realities at once, an intact, resilient inner self that never broke, and a deep relational wound that came from being misread, shamed, and used as the family's emotional lightning rod.
This episode draws from a blended lens. I'm pulling together the empirical rigor of social psychology, nature-informed and somatic therapy approaches, and a psycho-spiritual framework that's especially useful when a client's inner world is organized around meaning, faith, and parts of self. In particular, we're combining research and ideas associated with Dr. Kian West, the ecotherapy and nature-informed clinical work associated with Dr. Heidi Schreiber-Pan, and the Center for Nature-Informed Therapy, and internal family systems work connected to Dr. Richard Schwartz and the IFS tradition. I'm also bringing in wisdom from the Ethiopian Orthodox Tuahido tradition, including texts preserved in that canon like Jubilees and 1 Enoch, because in this case that spiritual architecture is not decoration. It's clinically relevant. It's a resource. It's a mirror.
Now here's the core clinical observation. The client is not weird. He's not broken. And the most telling sign is something that many people misunderstand at first. He feels no guilt about what happened. None. That absence of guilt is not denial. It's not lack of conscience. In this context, it's a strong indicator that his internal compass is functioning. He knows, on a deep level, that his teenage self wasn't committing harm. He was engaging in a private bodily ritual that helped him survive emotionally.
So where's the trauma if it's not guilt? The trauma is relational. It's betrayal layered on neglect. It's chronic gaslighting. It's the experience of being assigned a role in a dysfunctional system and then being punished any time you try to step out of it.
If you've ever watched how unhealthy family systems maintain balance, you'll recognize the pattern. One person becomes the problem, the odd one, the sensitive one, the embarrassing one. Once the system chooses that scapegoat, it fights to keep them in that position because the role itself stabilizes the family's denial. It gives everyone else a way to avoid looking at their own behavior. And it gives the system a place to dump its anxiety.
In this case, the family has held onto a memory from decades ago and uses it like a weapon. And here's where it gets even clearer. Other relatives have themselves visited clothing-optional places at least once, maybe more than once, and yet they still reach back 37 years to shame the client for a moment that happened when he was 15. Clinically, that hypocrisy matters. Because it tells you the argument was never really about nudity. It was about power. It was about preserving a hierarchy where he stays pathologized and they stay righteous.
So let's name that plainly. For them, the story functions as a social control device. It's an anchor that keeps him down there, keeps them up here. And that's why the story won't die. It's useful to the system.
Now, the part that might surprise some listeners is what happens when we bring in the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo canon as a clinical resource. If your instinct is to link this client's experience to the Ethiopian biblical tradition, that's not random at all. The Tewahedo canon is unusually expansive, traditionally described as containing 81 books, and it preserves ancient texts that many Western Christians never encounter, including Jubilees and 1 Enoch. Those texts carry a different tone around the body, innocence, and cosmic order than the guilt-saturated way many people were taught to think about nakedness.
Let's start with Jubilees. In a lot of Western theology, nakedness gets quickly tied to shame, sin, and the fall. So the body becomes suspicious. Exposure becomes automatically sexualized or condemned. But in Jubilees, you can find a memory of creation that moves in a different direction. Humanity's original state is depicted as pure, luminous, and uncorrupted. Clothing is not framed as the solution to a shameful body. It's more like a later adaptation to a fractured social world.
So if we translate that into the client's story, his teenage impulse starts to look very different. The 15-year-old wasn't being deviant. He was reaching for an Edenic blueprint, an intuitive return to a state of unmediated innocence, an uncluttered honesty before the Creator and the created world. It's like his body knew how to step out of the artificial, shaming atmosphere of the house and into something clean.
Then there's 1 Enoch, particularly the sections often described as the Book of the Heavenly Luminaries. In that worldview, the stars and the heavenly bodies aren't just inert objects. They're portrayed as ordered, obedient, faithful witnesses. There's a sense of cosmic liturgy, of a steady rhythm that doesn't betray itself. In emotional terms, that matters because what does a neglected child crave? Not excitement, not chaos. They crave steadiness, reliability, a witness who doesn't look away.
And this takes us right to the psychological hinge point in the case, the longing to be seen by something greater. That longing is not vanity. It's not attention-seeking in the shallow sense. It's an adaptive response to existential invisibility.
When parents fail to mirror a child, the child doesn't just feel sad. The child can feel erased. If no one notices you, delights in you, reflects you, it starts to feel like you don't exist. This client grew up with what we could call an attention deficit in the environment, not in the child. Severe emotional neglect. Chronic invisibility. The mother and father didn't provide the basic psychological mirror that helps a child form a stable sense of self.
So at 15, his psyche did something brilliant. If the earthly parents won't see me, then I'll go find a witness who will. He steps outside. He removes his clothes. And that detail matters. It isn't a stunt, it's radical vulnerability. He's taking off the layers the family bought, the identity the system assigned, the social costume. And he lies down on top of his clothes, which is almost symbolic, separating himself from the house, from the narrative, from the contaminated environment, and giving his body to the sky.
He's searching for a mirror that won't distort him. A mirror that won't judge him. A mirror that won't ignore him. And the night sky, in his experience, does something the family never did. It bears witness without disgust. It holds him without commentary. It sees him without trying to shrink him.
If you're listening and thinking, why would nudity be the form this took? Here's one answer. Because clothing can function like armor in a relational war zone. And taking it off can be the nervous system's way of saying, for one moment, I want to exist without defense. I want to exist as I am.
And that's why his adult experiences later in life, traveling and visiting nude beaches without shame, are not signs of pathology either. They can be signs of integration. Proof that his desire for authentic, unmediated existence isn't some isolated, weird thing. It's human. It's shared. It's natural. The only place it stays contaminated is inside the family's storyline.
So what does treatment focus on when the client's core self is intact and guilt isn't the issue? The work is not about repairing a broken identity. The work is about decoupling. Specifically, neurosomatic decoupling, breaking the conditioned link between his spiritual expansiveness and the family's constricting shame response.
In plain language, the goal is to help his nervous system learn, deeply and repeatedly, that his connection to nature, to the sky, to innocence, does not have to automatically trigger the family's old punishment loop inside his body. We want boundaries that aren't just intellectual. We want boundaries that live in muscle, breath, posture, and instinct.
Let's get practical. I'm going to walk through several clinical techniques that fit this case. Narrative externalization, IFS parts work, and somatic exercises drawn from somatic experiencing principles and boundary setting practices.
First, narrative externalization. In narrative therapy, we separate the person from the problem. So instead of treating shame as who he is, we treat it like an invasive story that keeps trying to attach itself to him. One way to frame it is to name the family's story as something like a contamination narrative. The shame is an unwanted package they keep trying to deliver to his doorstep.
The intervention here is to map the projection. What exactly do the sister and cousin-in-law say? When do they bring it up? What do they gain socially when they tell it? And then we look at the contradiction. They can privately dabble in clothing optional environments, but they publicly punish his teenage memory. That often points to splitting, compartmentalization, hypocrisy, and projection. They're managing their own discomfort with vulnerability by exporting disgust onto him.
The reframe matters. It shifts the language from, they shamed me for being naked, to something like, they used their fear of vulnerability to contaminate a sacred survival moment. That's not wordplay. That's reclaiming ownership of meaning.
Next is parts work, especially internal family systems. Even if he's 52 now, the part of him that still gets hit by the story is not 52. It's the 15-year-old. The sky seeker. The boy who went outside to be witnessed and got ambushed by family ridicule.
In session, you can invite the adult self to revisit the scene in a controlled, resourced way. Not to relive it, but to re-enter it with agency. Visualize the backyard. Visualize the clothes on the ground. Visualize the quiet, expansive feeling before the interruption.
Then we do something subtle but powerful. We change the relational geometry. We ask the adult self to step between the teenager and the incoming headlights, the symbol of the family's intrusion. And the adult says, in his own words, something like, I've got this now. You didn't do anything wrong. They don't get to touch this moment anymore.
That's how you build an internal protective barrier. In IFS language, we're helping the adult self-energy provide leadership and protection, so the younger part doesn't have to keep bracing against the family's interjects, those internalized voices that repeat, you're strange, you're shameful, you're the problem.
Now let's move into the body. Because in scapegoating, the story lives in the nervous system. You can understand everything intellectually and still feel a surge of tightness, anger, or collapse when the family brings it up.
Somatic pendulation is one of the most useful tools here. Pendulation is the practice of moving attention back and forth between a resourced state and a lightly activated state, teaching the nervous system that it can touch the trigger without getting swallowed by it.
Step A is the resource. Invite him to recall the physical sensations of that night before he was interrupted, or a later experience at a nude beach where he felt safe and grounded. Then track sensations. Is the chest open? Does the skin feel cool? Is there a sense of spaciousness in the belly? Let his system soak in that for a couple minutes, long enough for the body to register, this is safety, this is innocence, this is expansion.
Step B is gentle titration. Bring up a recent moment when the family tried to pin the story on him again. Not the whole thing at full volume, just enough to locate where it lands in the body. Does the throat tighten? Do the shoulders rise? Is there a knot in the stomach? The job is not to analyze. The job is to notice.
Step C is the shift. Before the activation spikes, guide him back to the resource, the skin-to-sky feeling, the body memory of being held by vastness. Repeat this loop. Over time, the neural pathway of expansion becomes stronger than the pathway of constriction. The family's shame response becomes smaller, less automatic, less sticky.
Another somatic tool I like here is what we might call return to sender. Because in this case, the client isn't struggling with internal guilt. The pressure is external. It's someone else's shame being pushed into his space.
So you do it physically. He stands. He imagines the shaming words, the looks, the mocking tone, as an object or weight in front of him. Then, with a firm, slow outward push of both hands, palms facing away, he pairs movement with breath. And as he pushes, he says, out loud or internally, "This shame belongs to you, not me. I'm returning it to its owner."
That pairing matters. It helps the muscles release decades of bracing. It interrupts the freeze response that scapegoats carry, the body anticipating attack, even when the room is quiet.
Now let's go deeper into how the Ethiopian texts can be operationalized clinically, not as a sermon, but as a precise therapeutic resource. Both IFS and narrative therapy look for allies that validate the client's basic goodness against a system of distortion. And the Edenic blueprint from Jubilees can function as exactly that, a robust theological vocabulary that counters a cheap, pathologizing family narrative.
In IFS terms, the core self is never damaged. It's not corrupted. It carries qualities like calm, curiosity, clarity, compassion, connectedness. The Jubilees' depiction of original innocence, the pre-shame state, maps beautifully onto the idea of unburdened self-energy.
So the clinical concept becomes this. The backyard ritual wasn't a chaotic part acting out. It was the core self reaching for connection to the cosmos because the house was emotionally barren. The family then rushed in and dumped a burden onto it, a heavy load of shame that never belonged to the client.
Here's one session flow. Access the 15-year-old part through somatic tracking. Then, gently introduce the archetypal mirror. In the ancient Ethiopian Book of Jubilees, there's a memory of humanity before shame, where nakedness is not a scandal, but a natural state of harmony. Clothing enters later, as society fractures.
Then ask the key question. When you look at your 15-year-old self through that lens, what do you see? Do you see a boy being weird? Or do you see a boy stepping out of a fractured house and into something original and clean, trying to remember what uncorrupted existence feels like?
Next, differentiate the burden. Invite him to notice the moment the headlights arrive, the comments, the intrusion, as the moment a dark blanket gets thrown over a clean experience. Help him visualize taking that blanket off the teenager and handing it back to where it came from. Not with rage, with clarity. This does not belong to him.
From a narrative therapy perspective, we can frame the family's story as a dominant discourse, a narrow, punitive, hypersexualized cultural script about bodies and visibility. The Ethiopian canon offers an alternative discourse that undermines the family's claimed authority. It says, essentially, your body is not automatically shame. Your unclothed existence under heaven can be reverent, restorative, and aligned with innocence.
And then we do the reauthoring work. We ask, if your family is fired as the editor of this story and a wiser tradition is hired instead, what's the new title of that night? What genre is it now? Is it a scandal story? Or is it a sanctuary story?
Then we track unique outcomes, those moments when the problem didn't win. His later travels become evidence that his internal knowing was accurate. Standing on those beaches, feeling peace in his body, he was living proof that the family's story is local dysfunction, not universal truth.
Now let's weave in one Enoch in a way that goes right to the root of the wound, the agony of not being seen. When a child isn't mirrored, the child can internalize that terrifying message: if nobody is looking at me, I don't exist.
In 1 Enoch, the stars are described with a kind of fidelity, order, watchfulness. They don't drift from their posts. They don't forget their timing. They don't abandon their role. So in therapy, you can offer the client a reframe that is both spiritual and psychological. When his parents' eyes were closed, he appointed the cosmos as witness.
Here's a step-by-step way to do this somatically and with IFS. First, locate the void of neglect in the body. When he remembers not being seen by mother or father, where does that erasure show up? A hollow chest? A coldness? A sense of shrinking? Let him name the body signature of invisibility.
Second, activate the backyard scene gently. The teenager steps out of the house of invisible ghosts. He feels the ground under him, the air on his skin. He looks up.
Third, introduce the star witnesses. You can say, in your own language. In the ancient Ethiopian text of 1 Enoch, the stars are described as faithful watchers. Not dead matter, but steady, obedient witnesses, unblinking in their role.
Then you shift the direction of gaze. Instead of him only looking at the stars, ask, what happens if the stars are also looking at him? If the universe is not indifferent, but attentive? How does the teenager's chest respond when he imagines being held in the gaze of a trillion steady witnesses who do not judge, do not sexualize, do not recoil, and do not look away?
Then comes integration. Let that steady attention pour into the place where neglect lives. Let the warmth of witness fill the hollow. Notice what changes. Breath, posture, the sense of being real.
And finally, do what I'll call the parental reassignment. Not as a denial of grief, but as a recognition of reality. The adult self speaks to the teen. Your mother and father couldn't see you, but the universe never stopped witnessing you. You belong to something bigger than that house.
This leads to a clinical insight that therapists and clients can hold on to when the family inevitably tries to resurrect the old story. When they bring it up to mock him, they're not discussing a teenage moment. They're trying to pull him back into the house. They're attempting to reestablish the old power dynamic.
His healing lives in knowing that he has already outgrown the house. Somatically, spiritually, historically. The stars didn't shame him. Nature didn't accuse him. His own system didn't condemn him. The only condemnation came from a relational system that needed someone to carry what it refused to face.
And that's why the endpoint of this work isn't revenge. It's not even constant confrontation. It's sovereignty. It's a nervous system that no longer clenches when the story is mentioned. It's an inner adult who can protect the sky seeker part. It's a narrative that no longer uses the family's vocabulary.
So if you take one line from today's episode, let it be this. The client's lack of guilt isn't a problem to fix. It's a signal to trust. The core innocence is intact. The injury is relational. And recovery is the process of separating sacred expansiveness from inherited shame until the person can stand, metaphorically and sometimes literally, under the unblinking stars and feel, without argument, I exist. I am seen, and I am still clean.
That's the clinical landscape, relational scapegoating versus core innocence. And the door out of the house is not only psychological, it's also somatic. And for some clients, it's also cosmic. Thank you for listening to Bullet in Flight Radio, your story, our station.
Inside Out on Bullet in Flight Radio. Real discussions with mental wellness professionals.
If you've ever felt trapped in that endless top 40 loop, you know the feeling. Same songs, same sounds, same safe choices. Like the world hit repeat and lost the button to try something new. Today, I want to introduce you to a crew that's built to do the exact opposite. Change the station entirely. Bullet in Flight is based right in the heart of the 505, Albuquerque, where the green chili runs hot and the creative energy somehow runs even hotter. And when I say Bullet in Flight, I'm not talking about one single project or one single vibe. Think of it more like a parent company to a whole family of artistic misfits. People who don't fit neatly into the usual boxes, and honestly, don't want to. At the center of everything is a mission that's pretty simple to say, but not always easy to pull off. Elevate the voices that usually get talked over. The artists who get labeled too niche, or too different, or that weird one, too Albuquerque. Whatever that's supposed to mean. If you've ever heard something like that about your work, this is your invitation to pull up a chair. Because that's not a deal breaker here. That's the whole point. Bullet in Flight is built around inclusivity, creative community building, and giving underrepresented artists the megaphone they deserve. Not as a trend, not as a marketing angle, but as the core identity. It's a response to a creative world that can feel gated, filtered, and overly polished, where the most interesting voices get told to tone it down so they can be easier to sell. And here's where it gets fun. Bullet and Flight doesn't believe in staying in one lane. Because why would you?
Why drive a sedan when you could take a spaceship?
The whole approach is more like, what does human expression look like across every format? And then going after all of it. Let's start with music, because that's a major part of the DNA. The mindset here isn't pick a genre and stay in it. It's more like, what's the vibe and does it hit? That can mean the spiritual charge of gospel, the late-night pulse of house music, the smooth storytelling and emotion of R&B, or even that classic country charm where life falls apart but somehow the drink is still cold. It's not about fitting into a category. It's about making something that feels alive. But it doesn't stop at music. There's a strong dedication to the spoken word too. Podcasts that get into the real stuff, not just surface-level chatter, and poetry that doesn't play nice. The kind that lands heavy, the kind that says what people avoid saying, the kind that reminds you words can still be dangerous in the best way. Then there's film and TV writing. Getting into scripts that actually have a heartbeat. Not another recycled reboot of a reboot. Not something designed by committee to offend the fewest people possible. The focus is on stories with soul. Stories with perspective. Stories that sound like they came from real lives, in real places, with real edges. And of course, the stage.
Because there is nothing like live performance.
It's unpredictable, it's electric, and yeah, anything can happen. And usually does. The stage is where art stops being an idea and becomes a moment, right in front of people who can feel it in real time. So why would an artist want to plug into something like this? Because being a starving artist has been romanticized for way too long, and it doesn't need to be the default. And being a lonely artist, trying to build everything by yourself, with no village, no network, no support, that's even worse. Bullet and Flight is about building that village on purpose. The goal is to take the talent that's been brewing in the Southwest, often overlooked, often underestimated, and project it outward. Not in a please notice us kind of way, but in a we're already here, and we're bringing the whole sound with us kind of way. Bullet and Flight positions itself as a launch pad, a safety net, and the hype you didn't realize you were missing. And let's be honest, a lot of people are tired of gatekeepers. Tired of needing permission. Tired of feeling like they have to sand down everything interesting about their work to be taken seriously. If that's you, this is a space that's built for finding your tribe. People who want loud, weird, real art, and who aren't afraid to make it together.
If you want to get in the mix, the home base is https://justdominic.
And if you want the visuals, you can find the YouTube channel at Just Dominic Music. Bullet and Flight Music, LLC is the company behind it all. And the invitation is open. Check out what's being built, listen to what's coming out, and if you're ready to change the station, this is a good place to start.
Bullet and Flight, fly. Bullet and Flight, fly. Bullet and Flight, bullet and flight, bullet and flight, fly. Bullet and flight, fly. Bullet and flight,